Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Shawn Walsh Show. Please welcome, returning guest to the show, Mr. AJ Young.
Greetings, all.
Well, AJ has certainly been an interesting, what would it be, a year? I think it's been about since you last were on.
Yeah, year and a half, maybe. I don't even remember.
Certainly an interesting time for you. I mean, CAW All Stars champion. Uh, that big rise in COH. In fact, with big storyline with me where we got to main event a COH show, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I want to start things off with DZW. DZW just had an episode of Attitude come out, which I encourage everyone to check out. But for those have some questions, well, what is the status of DZW right now? What's the plan?
Well, I mean, for a little bit, there was a while where I was like, DCW's on indefinite hiatus because when WWE 2K17 came out, usually when the WWE games come out, I'm always like, I gotta make like 20, 30 people at once, and I just like binge on creating cause. And for whatever reason, when the game came out, I got it on the day that it came out, but it's just like I wasn't feeling it. Like I was making, a few people at a time, and then all of a sudden I got this like sudden burst of like, oh my goodness, I need to create all these guys. So created a bunch of dudes and uploaded the last episode of DZW, which was actually recorded. I want to say a little bit before summer ended, so like August. A lot of those matches were recorded, and then I recorded some scenes on the Elgato HD60 that I got recently. And now DZW is back in business. As far as the plan, um, honestly, just keep the ball rolling. Usually, viewership doesn't come steamrolling in until like a month or two after the fact. But if people still want to watch DZW, I still want to make episodes. So I'll just keep on taking DZW one day at a time.
All right, well, it's good to know. Good to know DZW is back, and should expect some more episodes in the coming months. Should be very interesting. One thing that DZW does, and we talked about this in the last one, and I'm going to talk about it again because I don't think many shows have learned since the last one. DZW, because we've talked about this, we understand people's attention span, which isn't much. Uh,
Yeah.
and a lot of people like to put on these 2-3 hour shows, and that's a lot. That's too much. You put on a nice, usually about hour show for Attitude. I think it's been working. Why do you think that shows? Because this isn't the first time that even I have talked about it with anyone else about having shorter shows. But this is not just me, but other people have mentioned this. Why is it that you think that people insist on having these longer shows?
I mean, personally, I don't know or understand. I think it's just sometimes when it comes to recording matches, get lost in how good the things are going or a sequence is going in the match. Like take Yankee for instance. Granted, that's an extreme example because Yankees matches would sometimes be like 30 minutes to 45 minutes. Yankees matches would be incredibly long.
Mm-hmm.
Talking that extreme, but like there's people who just record these long matches, and that's fine when it's one. But if you pack all of those onto one show, you're gonna end up with like 2.5 to 3 hour shows. And then with promos, there's guys who are good at keeping it short and sweet, like maybe 5 minutes at most. Sometimes if it's like a really big storyline going like 7 to 8 minutes, and there's the guys who go like 9, 10, 11 minutes, and it's like then it turns into an opening of Raw, and people already complain about how Raw is the same formula with a long promo opening the show. So people don't want to see those long-winded promos on Raw. They don't want to see that in a CAW fed, and like it just doesn't make sense to me. Andrew, I love ECF, I love Andrew to death, but last week's shows have been pretty long.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, anyone can ask him. Because he'll ask me, oh, how was the show? What did I think? The first thing I always say, it's long. And it takes me usually a few days to watch the show. Because if you're going to do what I do, like I try and watch the show so I can give some honest feedback. But so it'll take me a few days. So there will be people who will either A, not want to do that and just not watch, or B, will skip through it.
Yeah, and then like just in general, people don't have the attention span for CAW that they used to. Like, for example, if this were like 2007, 2008, and DWF came out with a 3 hour episode, assuming that back then you could actually watch a full 3 hour clip on YouTube. This was like back in the days of the 10-minute time limit for every video. But back then, it's like we were what, like 10, maybe, yeah, like 10, 11, whatever. It's like coming out with a 3 hour show for DWF. Like we watched that over and over again. Like up until it got taken out from YouTube, I would go back and watch DWF WrestleMania 2007 over and over again. That's because back then I had more of an attention span for CAW. Now there's like I pick and choose when to watch shows. There's some shows that like I won't watch for months, and if I'm not doing anything, I'll go back and watch it. But it's all about the attention span. You can't keep having consistently 3 hour long shows and retaining the viewer's attention. There are certain shows who can get away with it. Like AWF sometimes has long shows, but it has the viewership and the characters to keep the fans' interest. As far as COH is concerned, it also has the viewership and the characters to keep the fans' interest. But a lot of those times, and I think this was Shawn O'Connor was talking about, there's a lot of people on the roster who aren't necessarily good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, not the most entertaining people in the world. So when they're cutting like 5 to 10 minute promos and they're having like 15-minute matches on a show that don't really have much storyline development, people tend to skip over that. And even if they do have storyline development, they'll skip over it anyway, depending on how boring the character is. And that's not a knock on Travis or COH. That's just something I've noticed.
Yeah, I've noticed the same. COH shows, they can be long, and I think most of that is just because Travis tries to get all these guys in, and there's a lot of guys who just point blank are not good, and they take up all that time. And whereas I think COH obviously clearly they're doing very well. Travis is clearly getting great viewership. People are talking about COH, people are interested. So clearly he's doing something right. I think though you alienate certain people from watching, whether it be because of a length, but I think more because of certain people's skills in the show, and you turn off, like, everyone knows Shawn O'Connor for his opinions, but if people think he's the only one who thinks the same, that's just not true.
See, Shawn O'Connor is a lot more blunt when it comes to COH, and he's speaking from an outsider's perspective. And Shawn O'Connor doesn't necessarily possess the finesse when it comes to talking about certain topics regarding COH, which is why I think people kind of like shy away from Shawn O'Connor as far as his opinions are concerned. But he has some valid points. Like, there's people on the roster who just simply aren't entertaining at all. There's people who've been there for years that just haven't cut one good promo. So when you put them out and you give them like 20 minutes, whether it's a match or a promo and a match, people aren't going to care. But then on the flip side, I can see where Travis is caught between a rock and a hard place, because it's you either give them a long spot on the show, or there's a guys like Combo Lupo who complains if he or one of his friends don't get the spot that he thinks that they deserve. It actually, sorry to switch gears, but it's just about the whole Combo Lupo situation. For those of you who don't know, Combo Lupo apparently complained about Trey Jeter and Jeffrey Albritton not getting pushes, and he actually messaged Travis saying, COH is good and all. I just think that, the mid-card titles need a shake-up. AJ Young's been champion for a while and yada, yada, yada. What about Jeffrey Albritton, or what about Trey Jeter? It wasn't exactly in those words, but it was kind of along those lines. Like, he kind of threw me and Jay under the bus as mid-card champions, but then he suggests Trey Jeter and Jeffrey Albritton. Now, this isn't a knock to Trey Jeter at all. From what I've seen from his promos, he's improving. Like, he's getting there. I think Trey Jeter in the future is going to be someone that is really entertaining for COH. But when you look at it, He's been there for the span of a CPV. There hasn't been time to really push him into the title picture.
Yeah,
I mean, he's in the Carolina club at the moment. Like, why just give him the Pride title just for, I don't even know. And then Jeffrey Albritton's been there a little longer than Trey Jeter, but no one is exactly clamoring for a Jeffrey Albritton mid-card title run.
exactly. And so, and like it's not a knock on the guys. Like, and the thing is, I think these people saying oh, Jeffrey Albritton or Trey Jeter and mentioning that these guys should get these huge pushes, I think that hurts them, because then instead of letting them, do their work on their own and let them in at the right time get to where they could go, you throw them right in the front, and you have it where people are like, dude, you're just not ready. And I hope those guys don't take it as like these big insults. It's just they're not there yet, and it's ridiculous to think that these guys should be in those spots when there's a bunch of other guys who are point blank. They're just more talented, they're better, and they've been there longer.
Yeah, and then especially in the case of Jeffrey Albritton, I mean, like he's not like the greatest or most entertaining person on the roster, but he's someone who is slowly developing. There's people who aren't fans of him. There's people who like don't necessarily hate him. But I think Jeffrey Albritton could get there in a little while. I just think that like there's some kinks that has to be worked out. Like, for example, the long posts with run-on sentences that make no sense whatsoever. And I think in some cases, and I'm not necessarily wanting to talk, this is a pot calling the kettle black here, but in some instances, he takes CAW more seriously than even I do at times. And I've been in CAW for, like 10 years, at least, like as far as if you combine me being a fan in general. Yeah. I think that Jeffrey Albritton has some kinks that needs to be worked out first. So for Lupo to say, oh, Jeffrey Albritton should get titles and get pushes and Trey Jeter and whatnot, like all I've gotten from Combo Lupo, I don't know him personally, but all I've heard about him in the past month can be summed up as, quote, push me, push my friends, end quote.
Yeah. And if I'll say this, for guys like, since they were specifically mentioned, Trey Jeter and Jeffrey Albritton, the two guys who are in the Carolina club in COH, those guys, instead of focusing on, and I hope these guys, I don't think they are. I think it's just their friends. I don't think it's them, but if it is, I hope I don't hear it. Instead of focusing on where all these other spots, they should focus on where they are and become, because they have a chance. They should look like, hey, we should be the next big CAW tag team, or at least in COH, or like, because there's an opening.
COH tag team's bad.
Yeah, there's an opening. If you're looking for a spot, first, the main event scene is all filled. The mid-card scene, there's a lot of guys there who are going to get opportunities before them because of the reason I listed earlier, being there longer, more experience, and just at the moment are better. But the tag team scene is very open right now. In fact, if I was coming into a call show like COH and I was new, and you're looking to get some quick success, that's exactly where I would go to. I'd go to the tag team division, because when you look at COH has, on Slam, it has one really good tag team in AFM where one guy does the work, and over on Battleground you have the Eradication, which is slowly drifting away from the tag division, and the Blood Brothers.
And like, I just don't understand. I think what it is that when it comes to CAW, people don't want to be in tag teams. It's like tag team has kind of like a bad name. Like being in a tag team automatically means like I'm not good enough to be on my own. And I just don't see where that logic fits in, because being in a tag team, I mean, COH needs tag teams. I mean, personally, I don't understand why the new movement split up. Quite frankly, I think they're better off together. But COH needs tag teams. That's really it. And especially if you're new to CAW, having someone to, bounce ideas off of and say, hey, we're going to do this. Just someone to collaborate with in general for someone who is new to CAW. I think it's a good idea. Like, for example, I mean, I've been in CAW for a while, but in ECF and New Dawn, I'm in this tag team with Jay. If you don't already, I'm in this tag team with Jay Crack called Rush Hour. And me and Jay are quite entertaining on our own, if I don't say so myself. But together, we could just bounce ideas off of each other. Like, we work well off of each other. And the fact is also that we're not tag team guys almost anywhere else. I mean, like, AWF, I've been in a tag team with Christopher Wonder. There was, like, a brief time I was in a tag team with NWO, but that was more of a stable. But we're singles guys almost everywhere else. So going to ECF and New Dawn as a tag team is something that is fresh and that's new, and it results in an entertaining tag team that people haven't seen before.
Absolutely. So I hope these guys give it a shot, and I hope those two guys, Carolina Connection or the Connection or Club. I
Club,
don't
I think.
Club. Okay, everything's about the club now. Hopefully those guys, because I think that's one of the teams that I actually think has a chance if they keep working on it to be one of those teams to take it. But it's about if they want it or not.
Yeah,
So
and I think they have an opportunity to shine because, like I said before, COH is very thin on tag teams. I personally don't think that the tag team that like there should not have been two separate tag titles. I think the division was already kind of thin as is, and by making two separate tag titles, it only thins the herd more.
hmm
And that might go back to my opinion that I don't think that Battleground and Slam should have been split up draft wise at all. I think that COH had a good formula as is with Battleground being the show where like the guys who were ready and the experienced guys whatever had their show, and then the guys who were the up and comers who weren't there yet or ready to be on Battleground yet, they had their show to develop. And now I just feel like because of the brand split, Battleground is stronger in the mid card. Slam is stronger in the main event. Like each show has strengths and weaknesses that would have been better masked if Battleground was just the show for the experienced guys and Slam being the show for the upper comers. Not saying that the brand split hasn't worked well thus far, but there's just weaknesses that have been exposed on both shows because of the brand split.
absolutely. Now, if this was Adam Jackpot on the show, Adam would insist that we should in COH like 15 to 20 people should be fired immediately, and then another 15 should be on thin ice. Is there anyone in that right now you think there's nothing left? They've because certain guys can hit a rough spot and eventually bounce back, but there's certain guys that just should not be in COH, and I think everyone can agree that there are just the number you can dispute, but there are people who just should not be in there. Who do you think is just run the course and there are no fans that care about them anymore?
Well, first person that comes to mind, and not for the reason that you suggested, is Conval Lupo. Just for the sole fact that all he's done since coming to COH is complain. He complained about Jeffrey Albritton and Trey Judah not getting immediate out of the gate pushes. Like, I understand this new generation thing, and I'm the person who coined the phrase that ran wild, but
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, I didn't mean new generation as in just push anyone that made their debut this season and give everybody pushes. Like, it's kind of like the opening, like, you get a push, everybody gets pushes. That's not what I meant. It was just like a crop of guys that were leaving and a crop of guys that were coming up. That didn't mean to just hot shot championship reigns and, screen time. I don't even know what you call it on YouTube by YouTube standards, but whatever. Like hot shotting opportunities to guys who clearly weren't ready and were clearly going to be rejected if they got those opportunities. It was just about crop of guys leaving, crop of guys coming up. But Convolupo, back to the point, all he does is complain. And even on the last episode of Slam, he complained about getting buried wait, is he in Snapper Tap Inc. or was that?
Yeah.
Okay. What was the other
in,
team again?
Yeah, he's in Snap and Tap Inc. with GMR. Then
Okay.
I gotta say, cause I remember, I looked back at the match. I watched it again. Like they got beat, but like I don't think they got beat as badly. I think it. So it was kind of like, I don't know. I felt it was just complain because I lost.
It was like what their like first, second appearance on the show. I mean, I find GMR very entertaining. Don't get
Same,
me wrong.
same.
But for Convolupo, it's like it's his second appearance on the show, and like all he's done since is create a stir, cause drama, and complain. It's like if you're gonna complain every chance you get because things don't go your way, leave.
Right.
Um,
You know,
sorry, go ahead.
call isn't is a job, obviously, but it makes it easier when you kind of think of it like this. If you just got hired by a job, with the smart thing to do, go in there and go and complain about everything and demand that you get raises right away in the first like 2 weeks. No, that'd be stupid. So you kind of put that same logic in the call. I'm not saying take it like a job, but it sounds ridiculous, doesn't it, to go in there and ask for all that and demand all that right off the bat.
Yeah,
Unless
and
your name is like Ray Geddes and you come in with a reputation and you come in and you show why you have that reputation, you have no reason to talk.
pretty much you hit the nail right on the head. As far as like people, as like other people to get rid of for the same reason you suggested, I'd be more lenient if they were still a tag team. But as far as the new movement is concerned, Mark Kennedy might have a case to stay because Mark Kennedy had like I don't think he cuts terrible promos. I just think that there was a point where he was getting better and then he kind of stagnated after that. As far as David Rivera is concerned, I'm personally not a fan of his promos. I mean, I don't know if I'm the only person that thinks that, but
I agree.
I'm not like I'm not the hugest fan of David Rivera's promos. He's dedicated. But I'm not the biggest fan of his promos. So if the consensus is that he doesn't cut good promos, then in my opinion he shouldn't be in COH. But that's not me saying, oh, let's kick David Rivera out. That's not me saying that. I'm just giving my personal opinion.
Right.
Austin Uhas for the sole fact that like when's the last time he's cut a promo?
I can't recall him cutting a promo in COH or AWF. I've talked to Austin. He's a nice guy from the encounters I've had with him, and I know from where he comes from in CXWI, he's very big over there. But to put it point blank, he is the reason why he is still in COH, AWF, wherever else he is besides CXWI, is because AFN. The second that AFN is split up or ended or whatever, unless there's a change, I foresee him to be gone. I think you agree on that.
Yeah, oh yeah. If you don't cut promos, there's no reason why you should be in COH. I understand life happening, but all it is just simple communication to be like, hey, I can't cut promos this time or whatever. And one of my biggest gripes in CAW nowadays is people who do work for one show and not another. And you and I are two victims of that circumstance. And another one of my big gripes, this is all going to tie in. COH deserves credit. They've Travis has turned a little engine that could I think he had an easy cap device that he recorded off of and has turned COH into something that's huge. It's probably one of the most consistent, if not the most consistent, fed out there right now. But I think a lot of people get too overhyped about COH to the point where they treat it like it is the be all end all of everything CAW. Mm-hmm. There's been multiple occasions where I've had people in my show who just simply aren't as active as they are in COH or were in COH. And then there's people who've just blown DZW off entirely. You already know the situation about me not getting promos from people, but then seeing them in COH. And all Travis oh, do they cut promos? Yeah, they cut promos. You already know how the Steve situation went. And before anybody jumps down my throat about that situation, me and Steve are fine. So I'm just saying it for reference. So if you guys want to go ahead and stir stuff up, me and Steve could easily talk this out. And we already have. But and just in general, that and this is to a lesser extent, but with Carol, and again, people are probably going to stir this up. Me and Carol he's probably going to message me after he listens to this show and wow, throwing shade, AJ. But nonetheless, I needed a promo from Carol for the last episode of DZW Attitude that got uploaded, and Carol's very busy, which I understand. Like he told me that he was going to be busy, and he was willing to cut the promo, but it's just like one of the reasons he gave for being a little hesitant to cut the promo is that, oh well, I haven't spoken in COH yet, so I'm a little hesitant. It was something along those lines because you and him are in the middle of this huge feud, and I understand the importance of that, but I just didn't see what difference it made for him cutting a promo for DZW versus cutting a promo for COH. I didn't think that the big confrontation between the two of you was going to be cheapened in any way, shape, or form by him cutting a promo for DZW, and that just goes back to COH getting prioritized over some shows, and I don't get it. Like I do CAW because I love CAW. I don't treat any show as better than the other. Only instance I can think of is when me and Jay were supposed to cut a promo for New Dawn Pro, which is Adam's Fed, and we were supposed to cut it on the Broken Hardys. Now, me, I'm not the biggest fan of fantasy, so when I'm asked to cut a promo on the Broken Hardys, I'm just like, they're not going to cut a promo back, obviously. So, like, how am I supposed to work this? So me and Jay are like, you know what? Let's just do this promo as is. So then we started messing around, and it turned out how it turned out, but that was just me and Jay messing around. But still, like, I don't prioritize one show over the other. There isn't a show that can say, oh, I haven't gotten promos from AJ, but oh, Travis got his promo or Sako got his promo. Like, I'm in COH, AWF, DCA, New Dawn, ECF. I can't even think of any other shows off the top of my head besides DZW. But every other show has gotten their promos on time, and if not, I've been active to try and communicate like, hey, I'm not going to be able to cut a promo for this show because yada, yada, yada. And, like, that's all what it goes back to, communication. But if you're going to actively blow off other feds like DZW and AWF because you seem to think that COH is the be-all, end-all, then quit. Like, yeah. That's why I don't understand people sometimes. Like, if you don't like being in a fed, quit. If you're going to complain constantly about how you're being used, quit. No one's holding a gun to your head. If you want to quit, leave. And there's people who just, instead of even doing the common courtesy of saying, like, AJ, I don't want to be in DZW anymore because point A, point B, yada, 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 they just actively blow me off.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't make sense to me that, like, unless their fingers are broken, I don't understand why they can't nut up and just type a simple message like, hey, I don't want to be in DZW anymore. Like, I don't want people to think that they're doing me a favor. I mean, well, they kind of are because CAW is a collaborative process in general, but, like, for them to think that they can just, like, that other shows are pushovers because they're not COH, in my opinion, it makes no sense and it angers me. Because, like, I work just as hard as Travis to put out a product. It might not be as consistent as Travis, but I work hard to put out a product. You work hard to put out a product. Andrew works hard to put out ECF. Adam works hard to put out New Dawn Pro, and that goes for every owner of every Fed. Every Fed works hard to put out a product. So for one Fed to get priority over the other, it doesn't make sense to me. And if you want to go and, like, prioritize Feds over the other, then you should just quit the ones that are low priority. So that way, when Fed owners are messaging you asking for a promo, and, like, they don't look stupid because either you ignore them or you just look at the message and not respond.
Right.
I mean, actually, that's kind of the same thing, but nonetheless.
Yeah. So, since we'll stay on COH, since we've kind of talked about that a little bit, and then we'll go with some other shows, some interesting discussions there. But we talked about pretty much the bottom, the newer guys, the quote unquote younger guys, who've come in, and some who've either deserved it or asked for too much. Now let's go up to the top, or maybe even the quote unquote top. One of the big angles that have been going on in COH that has been controversial for good and bad reasons, that being this alliance between Patriot and Alex. I don't know how you feel about it now, because it's still a thing, but it's not like how it was. So, what did you think about their alliance with each other and I guess their positioning?
Alex and Steve will always be entertaining as a duo. I just feel that sometimes Steve, especially with the whole Patriot rage and retard situation, he has a way of trying to be entertaining and failing because his way of entertainment is poor taste. But like just at his core, Alex and Steve are entertaining. There's no doubt about that. But when you look at just Alex and Steve, when you look at Alex and M Accuracy and then Alex and the Patriot, it's the same two people doing more or less the same thing. Like we already saw something. We already saw the Accurate Enterprise before. There's no reason to really see it again. It's almost like me and Nate being in the OBN before, and then all of a sudden we're this tag team that's like uses all the same mannerisms as the OBN. There's very little difference. I understand that Patriot and M Accuracy are different characters, and there's always a joke running around that, oh, Steve's not the Patriot, yada, yada, yada. But at its core, it's Alex and Steve in the Accurate Enterprise, and it's Alex and Steve now. And if you're going for this whole new generation thing, I just didn't see the point of putting Alex and Steve together again. I think Alex was fine on his own. The Patriot lost a lot of momentum after the whole Ray Geddes thing. But in my opinion, he needed something newer than being paired with Alex. Like for me, I feel like that pairing was made for the sake of having that pairing. There wasn't really any rhyme or reason behind it.
Mm-hmm. Since this, I mean, you kind of already addressed it, but like with Alex being back, it seems like for most it's a warm welcome back, and everyone is happy to have him. After his retirement, is there still a place for the Alex Enterprise in COH, and is there a lot more to come with him with all the new talent, or is there not?
I think it's a very exciting time for like Alex Enterprise to be in COH because if you look at where people were before, like last season, I mean, I was in a good feud with Caleb Blair that I personally feel that people don't talk about enough. But, me and Caleb Blair weren't exactly main eventers. And then you were in a tag team at the time. I'm trying to think of who else. Like, we all were in much different spots than we are now. Now we're just kind of like gradually, rising up against him and gaining momentum. And with COH, there's just a lot of fresh faces in general. And, Ray's at the top. Jay's the internet champ. I'm trying to think of who else. But nonetheless, like my point stands, there's a lot of people that are just gradually gaining traction in COH that may not have had that opportunity before. So, yeah, Alex Enterprise is back. It's the same guy, but it's with a fresher and more improved crop of talent for him to feud with. So, like, the people that are like, Alex Enterprise is back, like, Alex. Alex isn't going to be like, oh, push me. I'm the number one guy in COH. Alex has been actively trying to work with, other guys on the roster. Alex isn't the type to, go into, I mean, I hate this type of term in CAW because I just feel like it doesn't have much of a place, but for lack of a better term, go into business for himself and just in general hold people down. Alex actually shows a desire to, do new things and work with new people. So I think that Alex has a place in COH for a long time going forward, as long as there's, a revolving door of talent.
Exactly. That was now. I want to clarify just because the way I phrased it. Like I'm very happy Alex is back, and Alex knows that. And I think he's going to do great, and he's going to do awesome. And it's funny because when that whole thing got stirred up of like whatever his name is, I don't even remember his name, and it's probably because he's not important. The guy was advocating for like, oh, why isn't such and such in the main event, and yada yada yada, and that whole comment war on the COH page. Then they went and they pointed the blame at like that Alex was taking people's spots, and it was like Alex of all people.
Alex didn't even do anything.
Alex didn't even realize what it was going on until I think I might have tagged him, and like we all like laughed like Alex of all people. Alex, and I'll just put this out there. When he saw Endgame and or when he got, I don't know if it's when he got told or when it came out, and I guess whenever he knew that we were in the main event, he messaged me and he was like, "Oh, congratulations" and stuff like that, and he was all nice about it and saying how we deserved it. So that goes to show you how he is at taking spots there. He's just openly giving them away.
Master politician congratulates people on making it to the main event. Such a politician, the reign of terror that is Alexander Fry. Like, Alex wants people to do good. Like, he's not holding people down. If anything, he's just very eager to work with guys like you, guys like me, to just create entertaining feuds. Like, I mean, we've already had a little mix-up for CAW All Stars, but as far as COH is concerned, if I had to choose right now who I want to feud with, the answer would be Alex.
Be a very good feud. I really think that'd be a good feud. Just hopefully it'll come. It's always seemed like when it was like never good, and you guys would be on the, I guess because then when it could happen, you guys would both be heel.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, even if we're both heel, I feel like it's entertaining regardless, just because not to sound egotistical, I probably will sound egotistical anyway, so it's whatever. But at its core, it's me and Alex. I think it's just entertaining regardless of what our disposition is.
Right. Well, maybe it'll come soon. Who knows? So yeah, that was very interesting. And name one name only, of who is the best guy besides yourself. Okay.
Oh, damn.
Who is the best guy running in COH today? I mean, I'm not saying like who was it a year ago. Like, who is it today? I'm curious because I know who a lot of people would name. So who do you think is
best guy in COH today? That's a tough one. I probably have to go with Brandon Wolf, just because he's gained so much traction lately. Like, people are always talking about Brandon Wolf. Like, it's basically general consensus that Brandon Wolf will be global champ or champion of whatever show he ends up on next season, because Brandon Wolf is getting that good, and Brandon Wolf just is simply that good.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'd have to agree, but I think everyone knows I like Brandon, so good things to come for him. Good things also to come outside of COH, not just in their own like characters, but their own shows. We saw ICW with Levi and Austin with RCW. Any impressions thus far? Because two new shows in the block, so that's good to have. Do you think that? What do you think of so far? These guys putting out these shows.
Well, I think in general, just more feds just gives a chance for people to kind of shine. I didn't get a chance to watch Levi's show, but I did get a chance to kind of like skim through RCW. I didn't get a chance to watch it all the way through yet. Austin, very entertaining on commentary. I think Austin on commentary is the right move, and it has its mix of guys that are from COH and guys that are from YWF. So it's not exactly the same as COH, but at the same time, I think like by RCW having the majority of its talent be from COH or YWF. This may be too early to say because of the first show, but I think it's just like it doesn't really have an identity yet because it's borrowing from COH and YWF. And when you look at it, Austin has made it no secret that those are the two shows that he takes the most inspiration from. Mm-hmm. So I understand why he chose the guys that he chose for the show. But at the same time, I think like it's fine for the first few episodes, but I think there has to be a point where like an identity starts to be developed. Maybe guys do different characters. Because, for example, Fisk in way too many shows. Like Fisk is in RCW. Is he in ICW?
Yep.
ICW, YWF, COH, AWF, ECF, New Dawn, I think. Yeah, New Dawn. That's I think 7 or 8 shows I just listed off the top of my head that have Fisk in it. I think Fisk as a character is just too overused, and there's very like Fisk plays the same exact character. It's not like there's Monster Fisk and then there's Corporate Fisk or Groove Master Fisk. It's Fisk playing the exact same character in too many shows, and that is just creating oversaturation. Like Fisk is probably the most oversaturated guy in CAW right now. But as far as Austin's Fed, I think that like he has a ways to go. It is his first show. My piece of advice would just for the future, like add crowd. Yeah, I can't talk today. Add crowd noise because it's just super silent during some of the entrances. B, I'm trying to think of what else. Try to find people that haven't been in COH or YWF, and C. This kind of goes back to the crowd noise. If you're not going to have crowd noise, don't have Metallica themes as the only audio in the background because that is heading straight for Copyright City. And I don't think that's necessarily Austin's fault because like he's new to as far as like making the show, he's pretty new to it. But there's guys who, quite frankly, know better than to use Metallica themes and themes that you'd find on the radio that would easily get you copyrighted. And so I think that like as far as theme selection, there needs to be just less copyright heavy themes. But I think RCW's on its way. As far as ICW, I haven't had a chance to watch it yet.
Okay. All right. Now, this I know you agree with because we've talked about this. Certain people's promos, to put it nicely, they need to clean it up a bit. And what I mean is, certain people, I know Austin had this with one of his promos. Adam has this with all of his promos. There's whether it be his background noise, it sounds robotic, like it's a phone call, and I think I guess it's okay if you're, bottom of the card, but if you're someone who's looking it's just unprofessional, I think, and it hurts the show. What do you think?
I agree with that. Like, I understand that with like depending on people's financial situation, like mic levels or like mic quality levels vary. Like, for example, I have a Blue Yeti stereo microphone. I upgraded from a Blue Snowball recently. I think it was like Black Friday that I got the Blue Yeti. But it's just in general, like it's simple audio knowledge. Like, if you're gonna talk in a room very quietly and you have a fan running, chances are people aren't going to be able to hear you too well. Like, I think just the lack of audio quality diminishes the not only promo but the show it's on in general. I think that to the best of people's capability, the audio should be at least somewhat clean. Like, for example, with Adam, I don't necessarily hear with the COH promos. I haven't watched a lot of episodes of Battleground or Slam recently, but with the COH promos that I've heard from Adam, they come out relatively clear. But for every show except COH, Adam's promos come out like super muffled and super background noisy. Like with AWF, when I was on commentary for Uprising, he cut his Ray promo. I mean, aside from the weird Scottish accent in general, I could just barely hear what he was saying because he was talking quiet and he had a lot of background noise. And when you're talking quiet and you have a lot of background noise, if you edit that, chances are you're not going to be able to hear anything. And then with DCW, he was doing a promo for Brian Moxley, which is a darker character, and Adam talks a certain way to accentuate that character. So he talks quiet, low, raspy. But when you talk that way and you have like a fan or whatever running on in the background, it is very difficult to clean that up. Like, I tried to clean it up. There was no way it was happening because the audio levels from his voice and whatever background noise he had going on were the exact same. So if I edit that, you risk not being able to hear him at all.
Mm-hmm. On the topic of Adam, because we kind of joke about it with him, but the general feeling is there's something he's missing. What does Adam need to do? I guess it would be for Phoenix, because Phoenix is coming close to, he's in the main event in the world title picture. What does he need to, I guess, really connect? What is he missing?
I think it's weird. I think Phoenix as a character in general is in a tough spot because as far as like the next big up and coming guy, I think there's more of a demand for Brandon Wolf to be the next guy on Battleground than there is for Kenyon. And I don't think it's necessarily anything Adam's doing wrong to dissuade that belief that he's the next guy. I think it's just it like all goes back to Wolf's just general likability and the fact that he's improving so much. As far as Adam is concerned, I think when it comes to Adam, his biggest problem in general, not just in COH, but in general, he does a lot of things like on impulse sometimes. Like for his guy, like for example, Phoenix randomly had a man bun, and I didn't see the point of it. Like Adam likes change, and change can be a good thing, but sometimes there's a reason why people kind of stay with the grain on certain things. And like for example, when Adam came back, I thought that he was nothing more than a Finn Balor ripoff at first. Like the entrance, the mannerisms, everything about his return to COH screamed Finn Balor. And then he like slowly started to shirk away those similarities and comparisons. But then he got a man bun to pay tribute to Marty Scurll. But with the beard, he looks like Marty Scurll. It's like, I think just there's paying tribute and then there's copying. In some ways, I don't think Adam intends to copy it, but I think he goes a little too far when it comes to paying homage or paying tribute to certain people to the point where he starts to blend between tribute and appropriation. Mm-hmm. And just in general, I think that he's very change oriented, which is a good thing, but too much change can be a bad thing. For example, when he was making an attire for Fisk in New Dawn, Fisk looked good as is, but then when we were showing the picture of how he looked in New Dawn, he looked like Mortal Kombat DLC. Like it's something like a Mortal Kombat character, and like it was like it would have been good. Like don't get me wrong, it was a good CAW, but the general consensus was that it would be good. Like it would have been a good creation if it wasn't Fisk.
Right.
I think it was just too much change and too much against the grain from what Fisk is as is. So yeah, I feel like just like an addiction to change is Adam's biggest problem. Not just as Phoenix, but in general when it comes to CAW.
Okay. Speaking of change, a show that has gone through a bit of change as of late, being ECF. ECF in the last few months went through a bit of quite a big reboot, and now they do their shows in a different style. Instead of having regular shows like I would have Uprising or Superstar Mayhem, or Travis would have Battleground and Slam, he does like how the independents would do their shows, and also got rid of, like, he stripped all the champions. In fact, stripped you and Jay of the tag team title, stripped me of the world title. And I know, while it's a storyline now, I know you and Jay were not too pleased with that. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't necessarily because me and Jay were the tag champs at the time, but I didn't see the point of, like, I understand, reboot, you want to do things fresh, but I think that stripping all the champions of their titles was a knee-jerk reaction or a knee-jerk response to the reboot. Because I think that, like, storylines could have wrapped up, storylines could have concluded where, people lost their belts to whoever, and then it's like, okay, ECF, it's a new era or anything. I think there would have been a way to keep doing ECF as it was, but then just, like, slowly kind of, like, push towards the change that Andrew, or like the vision that he had when it came to the ECF reboot. I think that it just goes back to too much change, because there's guys who are just stripped of their titles out of nowhere, and then all of a sudden it's like, we're doing these big weekly events, or like we're doing Death Row, we're doing such and such, because one of our biggest criticisms to Andrew was that, like, when it comes to ECF, he has too many shows. Like, there was no reason to have two weekly, or at least by cost standards, weekly-esque feeling shows, and then have CPVs on top of that. If anything, it should have just been Death Row, and then CPV, Death Row series with like 3 or 4 episodes, and then CPV. But yeah, just in general, I think it was too much change, and there was a way to like slowly transition towards it. But I think Andrew pulled the plug on everything a little too quickly.
Okay, all right. Uh, now over in the AWF, you just won the Money in the Bank.
You,
Cyberslam, which was however many months ago, or I don't know. That was time. I'm not good with time, but which I know because it's my show, and I didn't tell you. Was this a little bit of a surprise for you?
yeah,
So
because I'm doing commentary with you as Antoine Princeton, and I'm like, oh, Ian Morgan's gonna win this. Like it's clear Ian Morgan's favorite going in. So I was like, okay, just that's all it is. Do my job. And then all of a sudden, I see the ring clear. I see me up there. I'm like, there's no way. And then I grab it. I'm like, well, damn. So it's like my like surprise reaction was legitimate, but I was like, what the hell?
yeah, so I mean, good chance you may cash it in and win, unless I have you lose. You never know. I could be that. I could
Or
be
I could
that.
just like,
I could be that guy.
out of the kindness of my heart, I can donate it to one of those young kids on the block, those young up and comers.
You could do that. Um, but who in AWF? Because I think with COH, there's guys who obviously are like doing really good, but I think AWF also is going through a little bit of like a resurgence of like with new guys rising up and new guys taking catching people's attentions. Who's catching your attention right now in the AWF?
Easy. Don Martin, Travis Sparks. Both of them just generally like, and it all goes back to, I know like I mentioned change is like kind of a bad thing, but I think AWF has done the right amount of change. Like for example, it's not the Goonie in AWF. I mean, the Goonie has had like a few guest appearances here and there in AWF, but that like he hasn't been the same in AWF. You transition Goonie to Don Martin, and Don Martin, I mean, like he was kind of like for a while, but like without the whole Kings of CAW storyline anymore, Goonie's gotten a chance to shine as Don Martin to where like you don't really think about Don Martin being the Goonie because it's just he's his own character. It's the change they're doing. AWF's doing something different than COH, doing something different than whatever other feds have Goonie, because Goonie, I mean, I don't think he's like, how to put it, I don't think Goonies reached Fisk levels of oversaturation, but I think that if he was in like 1, 2 more shows, he'd be there.
Mm-hmm.
But AWF doing the change from Goonie to Don Martin. Don Martin's doing fantastic, and I hope that he gets a world title push. If not by the end of the season, then at some point next season. As far as Travis Sparks is concerned, same thing. I mean, actually, no. Come to think of it, Travis has done a lot of different characters. He's done Sabsis, he's done Scrap Boogie. He's doing that gimmick for DZW right now, and then but a lot of shows haven't really pushed Travis as Travis. So then you take Travis, and for a while in AWF he wasn't really doing much either. But then all of a sudden, like he comes out and cuts to like Lil Sandy's promo, and then from there he's become probably the strongest character that AWF has. And now he's doing the Awful Waffle gimmick, and apparently there have been other shows that have been trying to get him to do the Awful Waffle gimmick in there. And I feel like in those other shows it's not going to work, because in AWF there is a reason for Travis Sparks to be disgruntled and go crazy, because he wasn't doing much beforehand. So all of a sudden he transitions and does the like whole Lil Sandy. Like I feel like the gimmick he does isn't something that you can come out right out of the gate doing.
Right.
In AWF it made sense, and it's been paying dividends for Travis ever since, and he's the best character that AWF has.
Okay. What do you think is the since since we talked about COH's problems, it's only fair to talk about my problems. Well, what do you think that is the? Because COH, probably the problem is a bit. There's a ton of guys that probably shouldn't be there. What's the problem that AWF, in your opinion, should address?
Crowd noise for one. Like, it's just sometimes, like, I don't know, it's just me, but like the crowd is too silent for when guys come out. When it's just like the music playing, it just looks and sounds like the crowd is dead. That's just my personal preference. I'm trying to think what else. I mean, like, there's some people who've been saying, it's a new generation or a new era in AWF, but Evan Rockville and Ben Hitman are still at the forefront, and I disagree because like it's like just common knowledge that Rockville and Hitman are kind of like at the tail end of their major pushes because you have the Don Martins, you have the Travis Sparkses, even Nitro. Who else can I think of? I don't know, just in general, like you have people coming up, and then you have people who just like debuted in AWF, like you have the Andre Nogueras, I think that's his name,
Yeah.
Tyler Watson. Like you have a revolving door of fresh talent coming in, and AWF in general has just been like a content powerhouse. There's Uprising, there's Superstar Man, there's CPVs, there's PCW, there's CCWO. I can't really think like this isn't because like we're cool, we're friends or anything, but I just can't think of too much that is wrong with AWF at the moment besides like crowd noise. I think like you've been quick to address whatever problems there is because there was a point where me and other people would like ram AWF into the ground about the guys looking too cartoony, the names being weird, just in general. And I mean, sometimes the criticism could get annoying and overbearing and insulting, but you've done a good job of taking that criticism and turning that into a strong product. I think like from I want to say 2011 to 2016. Well, I mean, actually 2017. From 2011 to now, you've done a good job at taking criticisms and adapting. Like AWF's criticisms from 2011 aren't the same criticisms now. Whatever criticisms were there then have been long rectified.
All right. How about this? Because you kind of touched upon it. AWF on my channel has a lot of content. Obviously, we have Uprising, Mayhem. We have PCW, which is my NXT, and we have CCWO. And here and there, I'll have like different special things, whether it be the reactions or the countdowns or whatever. I've kind of called it the AWF network to kind of like poke fun at WWE, but is there a point that there's too much? Is there what do you think of the I guess the format of having, in reality it's like having 3 different shows because PCW is developmental, but it's its own show essentially on a channel.
Well, I mean, I think the difference with that is like it's cost, so it operates on a more lax schedule. Like you don't have, it's not like WWE where you have Raw coming out on Monday. Or let's think about this in like AWF terms. Like you don't have Uprising coming out on Monday, Superstar Mayhem coming out on Tuesday, PCW coming out on Wednesday, CCWO coming out on Thursday, and then a CPV on Sunday. You don't like just there. I don't think there's anybody in CAW that follows that real life schedule to a T. There's people who have tried and failed miserably, but there isn't anybody right now, in my opinion, who follows that schedule to a T. With WWE, it's content overload between Raw, SmackDown, NXT, 205 Live, main event. What am I missing? The UK tournament, and then there was the Cruiserweight Classic not so long ago. But the Cruiserweight Classic was not like it wasn't so much content overload then. But then like now with the brand split, you have pay-per-view after pay-per-view after pay-per-view after pay-per-view. Like you have 24 a year. And like in AWF, it's not the same way because people tend to take their time when it comes to making shows. Like we don't run on a real life schedule, which allows us to take the time to work towards coming out with good quality shows. We're not going to destroy ourselves or overwork ourselves to come out with shows on back-to-back days, and then it like isn't in good quality.
Okay, all right. Um, CAW All Stars. You're the CAW All Stars champion. Retain the title, uh, which was a surprise to many. It was a surprise to me too, because little known. I don't know if I said this. I might have said it, but just like every year, it seemed like, oh, this was the year, and I go, nah, I'm gonna keep it on AJ. So seems to be on the road to some more time with the title. What did you think of CAW All Stars? I guess with the Kingdom of CAW tournament, and you fought the Goonie, and then Casey Gordon also being in the finals.
I mean, you always joke with me that I'm basically your safe plan every year,
It works.
but with the Kingdom of Call tournament, I think that it's a good thing. I don't think it's ever been a 64-man tournament has ever been done in Call before.
And never will
Um,
again.
yeah, I mean, it like brought out a lot of specials, and I think that Call Stars probably had its biggest year with the Kingdom of Call tournament and specials. Like it was something new. It was innovative. It was like the way NXT runs their events, but I think for the like Kingdom Call tournament, for it to be that big tournament, and then somebody wins and then loses to me, I think it's just an anticlimactic ending. But at the same time, with the Goonie and Casey Gordon being the finalists, I mean, me versus Casey Gordon, like I wouldn't have been opposed to it, but or at least I wouldn't have been opposed to it aside from it being just the weird matchup of heel versus heel. And I think in some cases that works, like with me and Alex, I think that would work. And then in other cases it doesn't. Casey Gordon is like basically booked as this powerhouse killing machine versus me as the cocky, smug champion. Like when you present the scenario like that, who do you cheer for? Like it's just a weird matchup in general. Me and Alex are kind of like on the same footing of being like cocky, smug, villainous characters, but Casey Gordon is like the powerhouse villain, and I'm the smug villain. So it's kind of like opposites not attracting. And then with the Goonie, I talked about oversaturation earlier. I think that like if Goonie won the Call Star title, Goonie has done so much in Call already that I don't think him winning or losing would have made a difference anyway. Like if I were to lose to anybody, I'd want to lose to Brandon Wolf or Fisk, or like even at one time. I know this kind of goes against the point of why I didn't think Goonie should have been Call Star champion, but going back to Ray, just for the fact that like Ray is one of the biggest draws, and again, it's weird to use that term in terms of speaking about Caw, but Ray, like wherever he goes, he brings his fan base with him. Like people follow Ray wherever he goes. Sometimes that could be a bad thing, but like Ray generates viewership like no other person in recent memory. So I think Ray would have been a good move, but just in general, I think with the finalists, it was between a rock and a hard place. And I didn't have any issue losing to Goonie. I just felt like him being champion, it wouldn't have made a difference win or lose. Like Goonie would have been fine regardless. With Casey Gordon, it would have been a weird matchup in general. I just think that the Kingdom of Call tournament in general was anticlimactic as far as me beating the winner.
Okay.
I see why, but I feel like it made the whole tournament anticlimactic.
All right. Um, is there any? I guess it would be one or two names, or whoever you think that you could either whether it be face each other or maybe take the belt from you. In your opinion, who you think is ready for that? Because it requires a little bit more.
Hmm. Um, Brandon Wolf is someone who I'd love to drop the Call Star title to. Who else? I mean, I mentioned Fisk earlier, but I think Fisk, it made sense then because of the whole, three-way, me, Fisk, Ray feud. Now I don't think it would make so much sense. I don't know, like, it really depends. I think Call Stars, as far as, like, fresh faces or like credible people to take the CAW All Stars title is kind of thin. But a name I think of right off the bat is Brandon Wolf.
Okay, all right. Now, DZW has coming up. It's a race to the top, which the participants were just announced for it. And one thing that's really cool that DZW does, because this isn't the first time you've done this, is you'll bring in people from other shows, or they'll come in with their own characters, and they'll take part, and some just take part in the event, and then you might sign like the winner, and then some other guys may end up appearing. Are there any guys that, whether they're in the race to the top right now or for the future, that you like what they have and maybe you think could do something in DZW?
Let's see. I'm trying to think of who's in the race to the top at the moment. There's Mason Chronic, who I'd love to have in DZW. Ben Hopkins, love to have him in DZW. Walter Scott, I haven't seen much of him. I know he's in El Dorado Championship Wrestling, but Walter Scott, for the fact that I've heard good things about him, and he isn't oversaturated. Like, he isn't in COH. It's not me taking a COH guy and using him exactly as his little variation, which is a common mistake that some other feds make. And trying to think who else. There's one guy who's surprised that I won't spoil for the moment. I don't know when this is going to be coming out, but I don't want to spoil that. But I'd like to have that mystery guy in DZW as well. I think everybody that's in the match, I'd like to have in DZW as far as Race to the Top is concerned. Like, I put them all there for a reason. El Martino was added. Obviously, there's no one really voicing El Martino, but
right.
It makes sense for him to be added because he was part of the Night of Flight tournament. So it's like, it's familiarity there. I like being able to pull people from other feds. Okay, maybe I worded that wrong. But I like being able to pull people who've been seen before and do something different with them. And like, do something with them that, isn't going to be the same as AEW. El Martino in the No Limits division isn't going to be the same as he is with AWF in the junior heavyweight division. Otherwise, what's the point of watching DZW if I can see the same thing in AWF? Or if other viewers can see the same thing in AWF. Ben Hopkins, if I pull him from COH and use him exactly as is, what is the point of watching DZW if he's going to get used the exact same way he does in COH? It's a lot of guys doing different things. As far as outside race to the top, I'm trying to think who else. I think Nitro would be a good fit. Ray, I do want to get in DZW in some way, shape, or form. Just not in a role that he's been in before. Raging Redneck, like, I'm not trying to go against the grain as far as the character is concerned, because the character is obviously working, but just the right amount of tweaks, I think would make the right amount of tweaks would make a good difference, basically. I don't really know who else is out there, but I know ECW has some really good guys.
What about now, because you said some tweaks to certain guys and maybe use them differently? Would you expect? I can't say for all, because that's hard to say. But certain guys, like you've brought in, with Jake Hyde, Drew Cutler, it isn't Goonie and Fisk. These guys are playing different gimmicks, but then there's also me, for example, where I'm Shawn Walsh, but I'm not COH's Shawn. It's a different character. Would it be like if Mason Chronic or Ben Hopkins or whoever came in? Would you expect or want these guys to do something different, whether it be some little things or major, like being a different character?
If it were Mason Chronic, I wouldn't want to do much change to him. I think he's had a good formula, but I think just the right amount of tweaks could freshen him up for a DZW concern. That's not saying he's a stale character, but just for my show's purposes to be like, Mason Chronic isn't going to be the same in DCW as he is in COH or as he is in AWF. Just for that purpose, I think a few tweaks would go a long way as far as the Mason Chronic character is concerned. As far as Ben Hopkins, I don't want to spoil too much, but there's something in the works as far as Ben Hopkins is concerned. Trying to think what else. And you mentioned Jake Hyde and Drew Cutler, like two radically. I mean, Jake Hyde isn't radically different from the Goonie, but it just goes to show the right amount of tweaks goes a long way to freshening up someone. So that way, when people are watching your show, they're not feeling like they're watching something else. For Drew Cutler, it is a complete 180 from anything Andrew's done before, because the Fist character booked as a killing machine versus Drew Cutler, who's basically like this smug, arrogant, rich, claims to be honorable, but is really just like a deplorable human being. And then there's you, who got booked as tag team guy in COH, used to the slapstick comedy. I don't even know if slapstick is even the right term, but you were kind of like comedic with Carol, and then you guys went from being the egotistical bastards in COH to being the American-made villains in DZW. The comedy aspect was stripped. You guys were like more serious. You got booked as the Grizzly. I don't even know if the Grizzly is the right word. I don't know. I'm saying a lot of wrong words today. Like, you got booked as this dirty, almost Ric Flair-esque veteran. Savvy with tag teams. Like, you got booked as someone who's been in CAW for a long time, because you have. So, taking advantage of that veteran aspect, I made that the main aspect of the Shawn Walsh character in DZW. And then for Carol, he was doing more or less the same thing as far as like comedy-wise in COH with, being in the egotistical bastards. And then pull him over to DZW, and he gets booked as a killing machine, putting people through tables and whatnot. And, not saying that Travis blatantly copied me, because that couldn't be any further from the truth. But the way he got booked in DZW for the short time that he was in DZW before he took a hiatus, he's getting booked the same way in COH now that he was in DZW during that time. He's getting booked as a much more serious character. He's throwing people off of cells. Like, he's getting booked in general as a more serious character, and I think that's something that DZW started.
All right. Now, let's move on to name association. Throw a few names, throw a few words. Adam, Phoenix, Moxley in DZW, or whatever you want to call him, a dumb, whatever. Well, what would you say about Adam?
Let's see. I know this is word association. I think I might have said this in the last time I did this, but it's very hard to sum up people in a few words, so I'll probably just use like phrases. Adam, innovative. Too dependent on, not dependent, but like too hung up on change. Has the potential to be very good, or is already very good. Has the potential to be like one of the top guys in COH next season, just as long as everything goes right.
Okay, all right. Nitro.
Oh yeah, and by the way, background noise.
Yeah, that's important. Nitro.
Nitro, again, has the potential to be one of the top guys in COH. AWF, I'm really digging the character development where, he's went from kind of, plucky underdog, or not even underdog, just like happy-go-lucky in general. And he's made this huge shift since his feud with Ray. And now, he's this, I'm all about me, I'll do, I'll win for me. Like, I'm really digging his character in AWF, so I'm very interested to see how things unfold for Nitro in both AWF and COH.
Okay. D-Wall.
D-Wall, he's been a good friend. Like, D-Wall actively messages me just like to see, how I'm doing, how everything's going. I feel bad because with the way my schedule was towards the end of the semester, and that was when I was, getting booked on DCA. and I couldn't get a promo for him because it just like it wasn't feasible at that time. D-Wall was very understanding, and I'm very excited for what's to come for me and DCA. But I do think that D-Wall should do commentary for his own show.
All right. Um, Jeffrey Albritton.
Takes CAW a little bit too seriously. King of run-on sentences. But at the same time, I think gets too much of a harsh rap from other people. I feel like there's people who are a lot worse than Jeffrey Albritton. And I think that just like given the time and just given the time to improve, if a year from now Jeffrey Albritton is in the same place he's at now, I was like, okay, it's no improvement, whatever. But like I think he has the potential to improve in CAW. He just needs to correct a few mistakes, and he's on his way.
All right, Scott Adams.
Scott Adams. I think that his reign was sabotaged by being caught up in the Travis Ray feud. Because I mean, him and Ray feuded for a while, but it was clear that the real story was Travis and Ray, and I think that Scott would have been fine on his own if he wasn't caught up on the caught up in the web that was the Ray Travis feud. Entertaining. Can't really think of much else to say about Scott. I know I had a lot to say about him before.
Looks to be going on a face run right now.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely entertaining. That's something that'll freshen him up. Scott's, at least from what I've seen, is better off as a heel, but yeah, Scott's on his way.
Okay, all right. Caleb Blair. So I guess it could really any of Cash's characters, but that's what a lot of people may know him as.
His characters from FSW are still my favorite in CAW to date, just because in FSW I like how mostly everyone there had a gimmick. Everyone acted a different way. Everyone was different in some way, shape, or form. Like, for example, Eddie Sleaze was a lawyer. Malcolm was a silent assassin. Caleb Blair was Caleb Blair. There's really nothing else to say there. I'm trying to think of who else. There was like Ian the Rocket Taylor, I think, was just like Canadian dude with the singlet and the fro, like this grizzly looking Canadian dude. There was Bala, who I voiced for a little bit. Like, just FSW was probably one of the more character-driven shows, or at least one of the more underrated character-driven shows that existed around that time. Let's see. Kevin Cash, I really don't have too much of an opinion on. What other characters does Cash have?
Let's see. Christopher Wonder, Corey Chambers, 2C3, and then the million that he does in PCW. No, it's like 20, but yeah, that's all that's going on for me.
I mean, like, didn't Corey Chambers go from like Mexican to white out of nowhere for 2K17?
Yeah.
Like his skin complexion got like it was darker, and then it got lighter and lighter and lighter. I don't know if he's using that Sammy Sosa bleaching cream, but aside from that, I really have nothing to say about Corey Chambers. As far as Christopher Wonder, I really don't have much to say there, just because it's a character that started in AWF, and Cash just so happens to voice.
Yeah.
Unless I'm wrong with that, so I really don't have much to say there. As far as Caleb Blair, I think again, along with Nitro and Phoenix, has potential to be huge, but I think the Caleb Blair character versus Nitro and Phoenix have like the attitude and like the rebel aspect of his character on his side as far as being like the number one guy on Slammer Battleground. I think Caleb Blair probably he's tied with Brandon Wolf as probably like the most exciting person to see develop for next season. I'm very excited to see what the Caleb Blair character has, and Cash just overall. It was great to feud with him. The whole AJ Young Caleb Blair feud. Like I said, I feel like it doesn't get talked about enough, but I think me and Cash were able to piece something together that was really good, had layers to it, turned out pretty well, and that it didn't get overdone to the point where people wouldn't want to see it again. So I think it leaves something for the future. But yeah, Cash as a promo guy just in general is phenomenal.
Okay. All right. I have two interesting ones. So,
Okay.
one being Nathan Vaz. The reason I say is because of his PCW promo. It's alluded to some things, and he's taken on a new gimmick. Any words in regards to that?
I mean, I heard about. I haven't seen it, but I heard about it, and weird just because Nathan, when you look from a continuity standpoint, Nathan Vaz and NWO were in AWF at the same exact time as two different characters. I mean, I think Nathan Vaz eventually got phased out, but NWO stayed. I think that just in general, NWO suffers from the pitfall of having this too similar of a character in too many places, because he's the anti-establishment guy, or he's the black power guy. He's something. He always has a political minded character, but again, I think when that's done in too many places, it dilutes that.
Mm-hmm.
COH, same character. CWS, same character. And I mean, give credit to CWS. CWS was the place that originated that. Actually, no, he was Nathan Money Roberts in CWS. So it started more with AWF and then continued. It influenced his CWS character and influenced his COH character. But I think just he's done it in too many places to where it really doesn't have an impact anymore. But NWO always going to be good at promos. To this day, it's a shame that we never got to have the conclusion to what we started in AWF as far as our rivalry was concerned. NWO is cool. He and I had actually before. Me and NWO are cool now. That's really all I have to say as far as NWO is concerned.
Okay. All right. And last name, Nate the Great, who is coming back with CWS soon, I think. And you're booked on it.
Yeah, in the main event, bros. Am I in the main? I think I am. I don't know. Let's see. As far as Nate the Great is concerned, was a very good friend for many years. Unfortunately, things happened, but he and I are on, good terms now. Trying to figure out what else. I've said this before. Booking CWS was probably one of the most fun times I've had in college, just because it's just good to have someone to bounce ideas off of to see what works and what doesn't work. And sometimes the stuff that worked for him went on. Sometimes the stuff that worked for me went on. Sometimes the stuff that worked for both of us went on. It's just at the end of the day, it was his show. So there were sometimes that he and I would disagree on some things, and it'd be a case of, okay, I see it your way, but I'm going to do it my way. And he has the right to say that because it's his show. At the end of the day, I'm not the one recording the matches. I'm not the one recording the storyline, so it's whatever. As far as COH is concerned, I think, and that I had my opinion on this, I think a lot of damage was done by having him lose to Goonie 3 times in a row.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if Nate wasn't going to win the third time, that match shouldn't have happened at all. There's definitely more circumstances that come into play as far as that whole situation was concerned. But because I'm not the main person in that situation, I'm not going to speak on other people's business. Even though I did with Combo Lupo earlier, just because I felt like that should be out in the open. But it's whatever. But I just feel him losing to Goonie 3 times in a row, if he lost the second time and that match didn't happen again, fine. But I think there was some irreversible damage that was done by him losing to Goonie 3 times in a row. Doing promos with him and Travis in the OBN, very fun. If you guys want to go back to old episodes of Battleground and see that, the promos were a lot of fun to cut. Nate, when it comes to CAW, I think you could describe him as evil genius in various aspects. There's some things that he doesn't call or that he didn't call that I don't agree with, but there's some things that he does that is just crazy enough to work.
Okay, I think that's the best way to put it. Put it better than I could have. Uh, I guess in a little piece about Nate at the end, since he's been gone from COH since Ready to Rumble, uh, I would expect he would be back. Uh, first of all, can he easily enter back into the fold? And what's the main thing, the one thing that he has to do or he should do, and maybe that's not him, maybe that's Travis, I don't know. Uh, to I guess extend his run, or can he?
I think a different like I don't know. Like he was going somewhere with the superstar thing, like the gimmick that he had when he came. Like didn't he go on hiatus after the second time he lost to Goonie?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like he came back with the superstar thing, but that probably would have worked better if he was a heel. And granted, Nate was heel for a long time, but Nate just in general functions best as a heel. I think that like I don't know, just something different. I don't know what, but something different. Nate can make characters work, but I just think that like there needs to be a considerable shift in order to be like, this isn't just a guy that lost to Goonie 3 times. This, there's something to be salvaged here. There's something that can be built upon and made better for the future. And I think that maybe taking him off of Battleground and putting him on Slam, whether like it be for the draft, would be good because fresh crop of talent for him to feud with. He hasn't feuded with Caleb Blair before. He hasn't feuded with Ray Geddes before. With Goonie, we've seen that a million times. With M Accuracy, seen that. Alex Enterprise, seen that. So I think that just give Nate a fresh crop of people to feud with, and it'll be fine.
Okay. I think that about wraps it up. Any last things to say before we head home?
I think actually, I think I want to just touch upon our feud for a little bit.
Okay.
I think our feud was just it was one of those rare things of like the mid carders getting the spotlight, and what I've tried to do with the Pride title is just make it relevant because like I take a lot of my inspiration when it comes to the Pride Championship from Shinsuke Nakamura and the IWGP Intercontinental Championship from like when it wasn't the title that made the guy, it was the guy that made the title. And I'm not clamoring to be in the main event for COH. Like there's people who believe that it's the natural next step for me, but if I'm defending the Pride Championship against whoever, as long as I have guys that are entertaining enough to feud with, like Austin, Patriot, you, whoever, like I don't mind, just hanging on to the Pride title. If I'm the guy that just hangs around the Pride title or becomes like a 5-time champ, not saying that is ever going to happen because that's just a ridiculous number for anybody in CAW. But if I'm the guy that just hangs around the mid card, like I don't care about being in the main event. And I think that's what a lot of people just fail at in general and don't see the big picture with. It's not about being in the main event. It's not about, being a champion or whatever. I know this is CAW, so like it's virtually meaningless, but like it just in general with anything, people put in work. People want to be rewarded for their work. The way for being rewarded for their work is, titles, recognition, yada, yada, yada. But I think what I focus on, what you focus on, and what I think other people should follow with is that just have good feuds and everything will fall into place. Like feuding with Caleb Blair, that was good. Feuding with, I did want to have my feud go longer with Lester, but unfortunately factors came into play. Things kind of unfolded with Sonny or Lester as far as that whole situation was concerned. So that feud got cut short. But then there was all Mark Kennedy thing, which wasn't really the beauty. I said the biggest and hugest, but it wasn't really the biggest thing in the world. But it was something in between something else, and then that something else was when I started to feud with you. So it's like it's good feud after good feud, and a lot of guys at COH don't have that. they're just floating around wondering, oh, why am I not getting pushed? It's because like there's no excitement for the stuff that you do. The feuds that you're in aren't entertaining enough. It's not about being in the main event. It's about, are people going to want to see your character development? Are people going to want to see, what you do next? What's the next layer in your rivalry? If people are interested to see what you do next, regardless of what position you are on the card, you're golden. And I think that's something that a lot of people need to realize, especially in COH.
Yeah, hopefully, I think too, because actually it's good that you brought it up, because it's talking about me, so I didn't want to boost my own ego. So, but with that feud, because that really, I think that is the perfect example of people when you're given something, you can make something of it. Like it wasn't the main plan. It was like the backup of the backup, and things worked out, and we had a good thing going. It was supposed to only go to Ready to Rumble. It was supposed to be a one CPV feud, and then we got it to get stretched out longer, which I think it helped us, and I think is going to help my feud now with Carol. Uh, and we took it to where, in my opinion, I'll say, and I know we talked about it, so I know you agree. I think we were the best thing on Slam. Ray had his thing with the world title. Um, Although I think people were just, the thing was like, all right, just give Ray the belt, and obviously Ray's going to have his thing there, but Ray may be the only exception. I think we were the best thing on the show, and I think
Yeah,
that's
and
why we
like
got the main event of Endgame.
it's a prime example of just taking the ball and running with it. It was supposed to be a one-off feud that wouldn't have seen the light of day after Ready to Rumble, and instead it became something that became big enough to be the main event of Endgame over Ray, Goonie, Alex, and the Patriot. And it's just goes to show that it's not always about being the world champion like some people are obsessed with from the first promo, but it's about just taking something and running with it. We were able to work off of each other well. We knew what worked and what didn't. We adapted, and now, to be honest, I wouldn't have minded our feud going the rest of the season. Like if Carol hadn't come back, and Carol messing up everything, like I would have loved to see our feud go through the rest of the season. And I feel like if not for Carol, because obviously that feud just had to happen. Like there's no
Yeah.
way that can't happen. Um, it would have had the potential to. I mean, obviously you spread everything out a little bit more, but it had the potential to last the rest of the season and still maintain its relevance.
And it goes to show that how well it worked, um, in terms of like the story that we were trying to push worked. Like it wasn't just, there are certain people who like, oh, we just like this character, and they're gonna talk about them in the comments, whatever. Like for like Ray's got his fans. Ray's always gonna get talked about, and that's great that he does. But one thing I liked, it wasn't always just, oh wow, I really like Shawn, I like AJ, or whatever. It was when we had our match at Endgame, and there were people who were like, damn, Shawn didn't win, which I'm the face, so that means it worked. People are supposed to want me to win.
Yeah, like it generated such a response that I don't think you can see the comments now because Endgame had to get taken down because of copyright and then re-uploaded. But there were people who at least had seemingly genuine reactions to it, like I wanted to see Shawn walk away the Pride champion. It's like when people have that level of investment on a show that's created on a video game, that's how you know that what you're doing works. And again, I would have loved for this to continue through the rest of the season. I think that feud elevated both of us. I think you're doing your strongest work in COH right now. I think I'm doing my strongest work in COH right now. I think like just overall character development, everything worked. Like as far as COH end of the season awards, don't want to sway anybody's opinions here, but I don't see how that's not feud of the year or feud of the season. I don't see any other feud that can top that.
I agree. So, hopefully, I mean, we're just hoping that you guys are objective and you choose the right thing. That's all.
You know.
Just do what's best for business. But we'll see when it comes. I'm sure there'll be a controversy. There always is. But yeah, I think we got that in, and I think that about wraps it up. And I think the best thing about that too is we ended the feud at a better place than we were at the beginning. So we move forward, and
Exactly.
that's what you need to do. And if you don't, then there was something wrong. So yeah, that about wraps it up. Uh, Thanks for coming on. Had some interesting things. Can't wait for whoever gets mad, because it always happens. I think I should just
Hey, well, you know.
I think I should just take my name off the show, and we'll just put the show, and then maybe people won't get mad. I don't know.
And see, like here's the thing, any quarrels, any debates, people's knee jerk reaction is to just like get mad and public, like, oh, this guy said this about me on the Shawn Walsh show. It's like we have Facebooks with inboxes. Unless your fingers are broken, you can message us.
Yeah, just be like, yo, what did you mean? Like, oh, is this what you think? And you talk it out, or like, is this what you mean? Half the time, it's not even what the people meant. So, just come on, figure it out, people. We're all
It's
friends.
simple conversation. Oh, some of us are.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to put a positive message. They gotta believe it. I'm none of their friends, though.
Yeah, well, you know.
I'm a heel. No. So yeah, that about wraps it up. So thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys in the next one for the next edition of the Shawn Walsh Show.